blood will stand the raging storm, has been applied with loving care. Safe, secure, you can rest assured that the blood is still there. One dark night in Egypt, a fearful time had come for one little Hebrew boy who was his father's firstborn son. With the angel of death passing low, it was hard to fall asleep, but one little lamb stood in his mind as he lay there counting sheep. He wondered why the young lamb had to die, why his blood was on the door. Through the wind and rain, it had still remained, but he wanted to be sure. So he called out to his earthly father with a trembling voice, so scared, crying, "Father, will you please look and see if the blood is still there?" And he said, "Son, now don't you worry, for the blood is there to stay. The wind may blow and the rain may fall, but it won't just wash away. The blood will stand the raging storm, has been applied with loving care. Safe, secure, you can rest assured that the blood is still
Luke chapter 10, just quickly. I want to read a verse before I turn Brother Dave loose. I can't believe Brother Ralph didn't wear a tie up here, but I snuck up on him right before service and asked him. I want to read a passage real quick before Brother Dave comes up, and I'm going to give him just a minute or two. In Luke chapter 10, and let's look at verses, 30 down through 37. This is the story of the Good Samaritan. I think about what God's people did versus what the government did versus what atheists who always stand their moral ground did. It was God's people that showed up in a big time way. And I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to preach, but a bunch of churches got together, didn't know each other. I mean, Brother Dave and all of them went down there. They'd never been to that church down in Asheville. Brother Sluter, never seen him. I think I've talked to him a couple times online, but just him and all the other churches got together, and it wasn't just there, all over the place. That showed the power of God in organizing the unseen kingdom that's at work out there. But anyway, look at your Bible. Let's just read a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and turn Dave loose. Luke 10, verse 30, it says, and Jesus answered, and he said, get this, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment and wounded him and departed, leaving him half dead. Boy, that was the folks down south for sure. I mean, that hurricane come through and just ripped them to pieces. It says, verse 31, it says, and by chance there came down a certain FEMA that way. And when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise, an atheist, a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him and passed by on the other side. But God's kingdom, a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him. And he went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. In verse 35, and on the morrow when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and gave them to the host, and said unto him, take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee. Which now of these thinkest thou was neighbor unto him that fell among the thieves? And he said, he that showed mercy unto him. Then said Jesus unto them, go and do likewise. That's what we're commanded to do. When a brother and sister falls, we are to do what we can to help pick them up. I'll tell you, I could preach. You go all through the New Testament, and that's what our command is. Hey, we're Baptists, and we like to preach the gospel. We like to see people get saved, and we go out our way to tell somebody about the gospel of Jesus, and praise God, we're supposed to do that. But let's not forget the other side. Jesus helped people and fed people and took care of people just as much as he gave the gospel. Because you win some with fear, it says in Jude, but you win some with compassion too. And I heard at Brother Sluter's church this morning, 2 got saved, seeing them come in. Folks, that's what it's all about. Amen. 4? 40 people showed up?
4 new people.
Oh, 4 new people. Okay.
And 2
got saved. Amen. Amen. God is good. Amen. Brother Dave, you ready? I don't want to take any time, but you got 48 minutes. I'm joking. Come on, brother, do your thing.
So I invited CJ and Cohen to come up also as they had this experience.
We'll be over at the pulpit. Is it on? Yeah, I think it's on.
Okay. So what we're going to do is go through our slideshow and just, again, it was about accountability. This was something our church did that I don't remember our church ever doing something like this. Now, we've done certain trips and we've done soul winning and we've helped the other church out, but not as a relief aid or as a ministry giving, not only life-saving, physically life-saving goods, but also to be a blessing to another church down there. And how it all started, again, just to recap real quickly, was me and Cohen were working out of town, and we got a call from Brother Lafayette, who just wanted to share with us what was happening down in Asheville, North Carolina at Bible Baptist Church. And he was expressing some of the devastation what the towns went through, what the people went through, the loss of life. And he just, at the end of the conversation, I said, it's probably hard for you to even put into words what you're experiencing. And he said, you're absolutely right. That's the best way to put it. And when he got off the phone, me and Cohen looked at each other and we just said, we got to do something. We want to jump in. And so we already started trying to make plans. We reached out to Pastor Reeves here, and so he was working with some things behind the scenes to try to coordinate and get the church behind it. And I said to Cohen, maybe about 2 hours later, I'm like, we did not pray about this. And I said, that's so easy for me to want to jump into something and not ask our Heavenly Father first. That's right. And so we stopped right there in the job site, and we bowed our heads and we asked our Heavenly Father, if this is supposed to happen, then you work. Let us be the vessel, and you work through us and do whatever those good works are that you already have in store. Yeah. And after that, I reached out to my wife. That was the second scary thing. And so I was like, how am I going to break this to her? Because we're already out of town. We've already been gone a week, and she's not going to want to hear that we're going to go another 8 hours south and be gone another few days. But we told it to her, and she was on board 100%. And that was an act of our Heavenly Father, too. So, and she actually she had her own little ministry, and the gears started turning into her head about some things, which we'll get to share. And it was a compounding effect. It was just not one good work. It was good works upon good works upon good works. It had this domino and snowball effect that just, we're not going to know until we get to the other side, but it was far beyond what we could have even comprehended would have happened down there. So what led to that call, we want to start with some of the devastation that happened here in these photos. And these were taken either from some of the people that were down there that were at our church, or friends of them that we got from their Facebook page of just different towns. And we'll just step through a few of these. This was one of the hardest hit, Chimney Rock, where pretty much like half the town was gone. It's not, it's not just that a house got leveled or, a store got leveled. The entire earth is gone. Like, you cannot rebuild because there's nothing there to rebuild on. So this was a common scene, to see the roads literally falling apart. You have there on the right side of that screen one of those boom lifts that weigh 20,000, 30,000 pounds easily. I mean, even tractor trailers, they can have an 80,000 pound load, but just a small footprint of that kind of a lift being tossed around like it's nothing. Wow. It was unreal, the power of the water. Again, here's some homes. This is where people were completely stuck and couldn't get out of their home. You even have like the storm drainage completely ripped up and gone. Again, this is a main road going up to a town or going through the mountain, and again, it's gone. Here's some more flooding. Again, this was Burnsville on the left-hand side. So not passable whatsoever with vehicles. We saw a ton of ATVs, which we'll have some video of. But again, all kinds of debris, businesses destroyed there, but that's what you would just see, huge piles of debris where bridges were in the middle of a field where it just like all collected. I mean, it would be people's houses, there'd be trailers, vehicles. Again, some more flooding. You can see that street sign on the left-hand side, that gas station. So it's easily like 10 or 15 feet, the flooding going through the town. Again, another house with driveways, and it was not uncommon to see vehicles look like they were through a tornado just in the middle of a field or in the middle of a parking lot. That's actually a parking lot, and it looks like a field because of how much mud was moved or how much earth was moved from the flooding. Again, another spruce pine, and then another I-40 is the highway we took in to Asheville, and so this was just west of Asheville. But this is a major interstate down there. 3 or 4 lanes both directions in some places. And that's what's left of some of those areas. And again, here's crews just trying to survey and try to wrap their heads around where do you start from here? How do you put this back together? How do you reroute something like that? So this is a quick picture. I don't know if this laser pointer, it won't work too well. I'll go up here and point to it. So there was a major mudslide here that happened during the torrential downpours, and we tried to do a couple screenshots, and we're going to show a video of the truck driving And you're going to see it. We didn't even see this when we were coming. So we're heading east now to go home. So a lot of these videos and pictures are after we left or as we were leaving, just so we could, that's the only time we had time to really drive through and see some of the areas that were damaged. But when we came westbound to go to Asheville, we didn't even notice this, or we didn't even see this. So it was only as we were leaving that we were able to capture this on video. So we had no idea what to expect. So here we're just driving up. And so what it'll be right about here where you see these trucks. This whole side of the mountain came down. I paused it and then it'll pick back up again. But again, we weren't even expecting to see that. It just happened to catch it on the video. And so the mud came all the way across the highway, washed out cars, tractor trailers, and then the mud went down. And so as we drove down this highway for miles, you just saw mud the entire way. It was unreal how much earth came down off of that mountain, and then it was just a flooded mess. And then here is, okay. But then I thought I had an after shot of that thing, but so this was Swanoa, and again, this is my camera just pointing out the dash, and I kind of sped this camera up just because it's a larger file. But what we're going to do is you're going to see a little bit of devastation. We're going to go through it pretty quickly, but then CJ took some video too, which is a little smaller file. And CJ is going to be pointing out to the right-hand side, and you're going to actually see a lot more detail of the devastation. But for mine, it'll be kind of fast forward, and I'll just pause briefly as like we go through this town. But Swanoa and then Black Mountain were two towns east of Asheville. And so we couldn't actually drive through some of the areas of Asheville. They were just closed off or completely gone. So there was nothing to even drive through. So when you get to see this devastation, we were allowed to drive through here. So that kind of impresses upon you how much worse it was in Asheville and other communities. But again, this is a little we speed up, and I'll try to turn, and it's just businesses were just wiped out, were gutted out. The floodwaters came through. This gas station, half of it was falling into, I'll point back, it was falling into the river. And then it'll almost look like you'll see trees and houses that are all smashed together. And are we going to play anymore? Okay. And so what they had to do is actually plow the mud as if it were snow just to get it off the road. So there were some places it was like a mud drift of 3 feet or 2 feet. So, and again, when we go through CJ's video, it'll be a little more clear, but there's trailers slammed into houses, and just vehicles in the middle of nowhere. The train tracks were kind of just suspended where the earth has like fallen out from underneath of them. And so like I said, a lot of ATVs and four-wheelers, because that was the only way people were getting around. So here's CJ's video, and if you want to talk about some of this, but we'll play this. It's going to be a little bit slower. Now these are just vehicles like randomly in the middle where houses should be.
Yeah, this was just the right side of what you just saw. So David had the straight, and I had the passenger side. But this was the stuff that was right next to us. That's just the warehouse. That's just Carpet City. That you can't really see it. But the road's gone. That was the edge of the road that we were driving along. The trailer park that was smashed, you couldn't see it too well driving. But there's the train tracks. I don't know if you paused it at all, but the ground's kind of gone from underneath. They can't take in trains there. That's what Pastor Sluter was saying. They couldn't take in trains or 18-wheelers just because the ground's so uneven right now.
I'll do it again one more time because it's a.
You put it all in one.
Yeah, yours is just one solid thing. But again, this was a neighborhood right there, which is just. If any houses are there, other stuff slammed into them, or vehicles are just flipped over into them, or 4 or 5 feet of mud, just in where there should have been grass and yards, and play sets, so for kids. Might be able to pause that.
You can kind of see it.
Yeah,
if it goes the whole time. I started doing the front and back so you can see some of the worst parts.
Yeah, so there is no train activity until they redo all those. So yeah, that's where the clip ended. But again, the earth is all moved from underneath it here. There's some, rocks, but there's no way you're bringing a train in here. So all that'll probably have to be pulled up and restart, put back in again. And then these are just some close-up photos of the same video. Again, just vehicles all over. I mean, just completely like smashed and rubble and whatever, everything on top of them. But this is about almost 2 weeks after this happened. So what businesses were trying to do is just, I guess, empty out the debris, and there were just huge piles of remains of other things that washed into their building that they were cleaning out. Again, there was that gas station where the river's on this side, and it just ate away, and half this gas station's like falling into the river, or where the river was, and then again, all the pole lines just snapped off, just suspended by the wire because the bottoms of them are gone. Yeah, it cut it off, but this was a mobile home smashed into a house here. So here's a tractor trailer, a van trailer just sitting there. So, and then I think some close-ups we tried to get of the train tracks there. So that's what led us to this call. Brother Lefebvre shared with us what he tried to express to us, and so when we talked to Pastor here, we said we'd like to try to raise some money and make some purchases at BB's, because they were the only people I thought of as a distribution center that would have pallets of food and supplies on hand. And so me and Cohen went Tuesday evening and went there and made a purchase of 8 pallets of goods between food, water, paper towels, toilet paper. What else did we get? Maybe baby wipes, and I don't know what else we might have got. Okay, so we loaded up at BB's Tuesday night, and they were wonderful. They spent about an hour and a half with us, just helping us balance the load and try to get everything on properly where we could offload easily, and also travel as safe as possible with that load. And then we pulled up here. And so when we came the state line to our bus garage, we had another few pallets of goods, of donations. I think some people were doubting whether or not we were going to be able to take it all. So I don't know if you want to mention anything about loading up, or here's some more. We had some volunteers, so not everybody was able to be here for when we loaded up, but we wanted the church to be able to view, what took place. And we did have some great helpers and organizers.
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot of stuff. Yeah. So we I know Jen and Alex and a couple others came up the Tuesday or Monday to organize everything, and then we came up Tuesday to check, and there was a whole nother pile of stuff, and we did it again. And then Wednesday morning, and then I don't know if you're going to go over the day again. They got up around 6 or 7 to start their truck maintenance. We got up around 6 or 7 or 8 to just say, hey, let's go make sure we're ready to load. So my warehouse background, I went around and we call it preloading. We set everything up, organized it to go on to the heavy stuff, the light stuff. And then by the time we were done preloading everything, getting everything to go loaded, we had another load come drop off of stuff to rebox and reset up and reorganize. So from I think we were all up around 6 or 7 on Wednesday, working, and then we missed the service. We were up there still working, and then after service, everyone came up and started working, and then we left. But yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of work done here from everybody, and it was a lot of work done.
Yep. If you notice the background, all the boxes, everything we crammed in there one way or another.
Yeah, we got it all.
So, we even added another pallet to the lower trailer that Cohen pulled, and we had the dump trailer pretty maxed out, but it definitely, we made sure we made it count. I don't think we could have taken one more item. We were busting at the seams. Even the trucks themselves were packed.
The tires busted at the seams.
Well, yeah.
Literally.
We didn't get to that point. And so
There
here we
it
go. So this was 20 minutes down the road. As soon as we got to
right at we were at the Habit Grace exit. That line is where it splits. We wanted enough room to sit there for an hour and a half.
Yeah, we ended up waiting. First of all, so long because I forgot the spare tires. Because I knew we were going to be so loaded up that I said, all right, let's put these somewhere where it's easy to reach and get to. And so it's super easy when you leave them at home. You don't have to worry about loading them up.
Real easy, right by the garage.
So, again, my wife and Kendra and Hannah, the best looking AAA you could ever get, went to the rescue, went home from church Wednesday night, got them, came back down. And if you notice, it's not too busy on 95 where we're at. That's because they went down to one lane right after we got to the Habit Grace exit. So we were traveling no problem. Well, by the time Amy and Kendra and Hannah got down there, they were in miles of 95 traffic because they were doing road work. So that also kept our stay there. So we about an hour and a half later, like you said, we got on the road. After changing that tire, we had our second spare with us. So that was good. And then what I don't have video of or pictures of is we lost part of our load. The top of the water on Cohen's truck, the top layer of cases of water came loose because the roads were so rough in Washington, D.C. And so we saw it. We saw, Cohen was leading the way. We were behind him, keeping an eye on him. Do you want to share anything about it?
Until you finish the story.
Okay. So we saw the load shift, and it wasn't the top or the bottom part. It was the very top, and it was the pallets. If we go back a couple pictures, you see how we have pallets on top. And Brother Fave said, put something solid on top to strap it down, which right now we don't have any straps, but we did have it strapped down. But he also recommended putting some walls on there. This story is going to come into play in another later on down the road. But we didn't have any extra stuff, and we're like, it's solid, we're fine. Brother LaFave doesn't know what he's talking about. So an hour after our flat tire, this pallet here, the higher one, we saw shift at an angle. And so we had radios between the two trucks, and I radioed over to Cohen. I said, hey, it looks like the pallet shifted, the top, you need to pull over. And there was no shoulder at that time. And actually an entrance ramp onto 95 was right where this happened. And he's like, all right. And so he tries to pull over. As soon as he gets a shoulder to pull over, and right before that shoulder approached, the whole pallet slid off and the top layer of bottled water slid all across the highway. And we're just like, oh man, and it just went it looked like we power washed the side of I-95. And so we had to pull over and deal with, going the wrong way, we had to deal with that, restrapping those pallets down. And then, and so here on this picture, you'll see we have pallets now. We took the two pallets off the tops, and put them on each side to try to hold it together, which proved the work. So Brother Fave did know what he was talking about.
We're not going to tell him.
But that was another half-hour delay easily.
It all fell, but only 4 or 5 cases broke open. So we restacked all of it on the side of the road in D.C. After we done littered the entire highway and carried many pounds of firearms.
Yeah. So it wasn't a good scene in the middle of the night. And it bothered me that those bottles fell off on the side of the highway, and we were so packed there was nowhere we could even grab those bottles to put them in something. The trucks were full, and you're not going to get loose bottles and try to put them on a pallet or something. So we just had to go. So we went as fast as we could out of there. And then about an hour after that ordeal, we blew our second tire on our dump trailer. And so we were much faster at changing that one.
Yeah, we were much better at that one.
So, because we actually had a spare. And so this was, after that is when we pulled up at a fuel station. This was maybe about 4 o'clock in the morning. I would say. So we were anticipating, our GPS said we were going to be there maybe around like 5 or 6 a.m. So this was at 4 a.m. and I think we were in maybe Virginia.
Yeah, we were in Virginia.
Yeah, so we weren't anywhere close to what our time frame was, what we thought. So again, this was at the fuel station, just a couple photos. And so this is when we stopped at Chick-fil-A to get some breakfast. We were about an hour and a half, maybe?
Yeah, hour and a half, yeah.
From Asheville. So this was maybe 9:30 in the morning. And so we did a quick picture just of being there and documenting it, and miraculously still having all our loads there and all our tires inflated. So.
In a week for 27 hours at this point, right?
Oh yeah, probably. We lost track.
Yeah.
Didn't you have to stop and help somebody else who had a problem on the highway?
Yeah, that was on our second blowout.
Yeah, the second blowout. Cohen, we had both blowouts, so we called Cohen to pull over, and we just kind of crept up on the shoulder because why not just ruin the rim the rest of the way? So we just drove up to him, and then a car pulled in behind Cohen and said he was having some scraping issues. So Cohen and Dave went to go help him. His skid plate was ripped all underneath, and I was just changing the tire on the side of the road. But they got him on the road, and then we got on the road after almost getting hit by a couple cars.
Yeah, we did have a very close call with the vehicles. It was actually pretty miraculous that we didn't get hit. It was close, like about 8 inches from, and we were 2 feet past on the shoulder, past the white line, and somebody came over the white line right towards us. So that was fun. So anyway, this is around 11 o'clock, maybe 10:30. Yeah, about 11 o'clock.
About 11 we pulled in, yeah.
So this is us pulling up in Asheville, Bible Baptist Church of Asheville, and I have a quick video we'll play here. Kind of sped it up and just. So of course, as soon as we get there, we're trying to just walk around, get our bearings, and then Brother LaFay's got to come over and give us a hard time. So.
Yeah.
You know, usually insults or something. Why are you here so
There
late? I can't believe. Yeah.
See,
He's pointing and laughing at us. So we pretty much, as soon as we pulled up, we hit the ground running. And if you notice here in the back, this is the drilling rig for their well. So they were just packing up. So that was news to us as soon as we showed up there that they just got their well drilled and got electricity hooked up to it, and they were ready to go for having running water on a faucet right on the church grounds. It wasn't tied into the church property because they have lead pipes, and they had to test the water and pH. They didn't know what the pH levels were, so they just said, for right now, you can hook a hose up or whatever, but you can't run it into the building.
It's in the building now. That did go through. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not drinkable, don't get in your eyes or mouth, but they can flush their toilets now.
Yeah. So here is kind of a little broad shot of the layout, and we have some more pictures of it, but just to give you a quick layout, the church is actually going to be, these are almost two of the same pictures. The church is over here, and then the parking lot and parking areas in the back of the church. And so what they would do is they'd have people that would pull up, and they had like diapers and wipes and formula under this tent. And as people would pull up, they'd roll down their window and they're like, what do you need? And they'd ask them, do you need these items? And then if not, they'd move on. They'd drive around to the next ones where they'd have food and water and deodorant and soaps and all kinds of other things. So they'd just ask the people as they pulled in. But that was pretty much how the layout was. So we showed up, and before I go too far, here's another picture of it. Again, the church would be behind me or off to my right. And again, you have some vehicles pulling in here. So this is, again, when we just pulled in. Now, Brother Lefebvre came over, after he insulted us a little bit and ruffled our feathers. We started going through some of the packages, the food, the water and stuff, and seeing what the church had, because they already had a lot of supplies. And so they said, all right, well, we need these specific things. So we started digging and getting those things out. And I said to Brother Lefebvre, I said, listen, I have something you're going to take. You don't have an option. And he rolled his eyes, and he's like, what? And I said, my wife gave me about 400 teddy bears to give away. And he's like, all right. So the pastor down there, Brother Sluter, he was very specific, and these people were, devastated. Their community is just like in shock, and they're just trying to do basic life things, food, water, shelter. And so telling the preacher down there that we had teddy bears to give away, he wasn't going to be interested in that. So thus Brother Matt's reaction when he had to go tell Pastor Sluter, hey, my guys brought teddy bears down. So anyway, they took the teddy bears, and we unloaded the vehicles, and I said to Brother Sluter, I said, listen, if the teddy bears are an issue, I said, I'll take them somewhere, and I'll find somewhere to give them, because I can see you guys are already overwhelmed. And he said, no. He said, brother, I'll give them out. I said, okay, that sounds good. So at first, they weren't successful, the teddy bears, in giving out, because again, they're just trying to give the goods of, food and hygiene products. And so what I ended up doing is I took the first couple teddy bears, and a couple that came out, it was a Spanish couple, and it was like, I think, a mom and a dad, and then I believe this was like a grandmother. And so I went over with a box of teddy bears, and I said, I just pointed at them because I don't know how to say teddy bears in Spanish. And the smile on their faces was amazing. Even the parent in the car, they just got bread, water, they just got toiletries, they just got all these things that'll let them survive for a couple more days. Blank faces, blank stare, whatever, in shock. And then those teddy bears showed up, and the parent, you just heard everybody in the car all excited. They were like, oh. And so then the grandmother just gets out and starts walking around with her two grandsons, and then they're just holding their teddy bears, loving it. And what it was pretty amazing. Not only was it a morale booster for the victims, but the staff, the volunteers that were there that got to see the people's excitement just giving out a teddy bear became such an inspiration to them that even though the church now isn't even receiving any donations because they have so much now, they're ordering these teddy bears to give out. Amen. So to see just a huge difference in it not only helps, like I said, the volunteers, but also was a blessing to the people. And again, my wife and then a few others, I know I don't want to take too much people's credit, but a few others in our church and some other family members got involved with that as a ministry too, and it was a huge success. Do you have anything you want to say about that when we first offloaded?
Well, when we got there, it was a mess. Everything was just, not our stuff specifically there, because they didn't know what to do. So everyone would come with a truckload and just drop it. And that's kind of why it kind of got a bad rep online when the North Carolina people were saying, don't send your junk, don't send you stuff. But it's because they got so much stuff that they now have to throw away, but there's nowhere to throw it away. They just have to leave it out on the curb. So even though we think well, maybe I don't use this no more, maybe they can use it, it's really, it's just another man's trash. And now they are responsible for getting rid of it. So, and they're tired and frustrated. So if you see their anger online a little, it's not real anger. They're just, we have our needs and we just need to stick with it. So when we got there, we were kind of picking through the dump trailer because we brought a lot. And there was a lot that they didn't need at Bible Baptist, but do you have Anchor Baptist on here?
Well, that's what we're jumping into.
So what we'll get to is Anchor Baptist. They basically just became a warehouse. So everyone from everywhere brought their stuff to them because they had forklifts, they had boom lifts, they actually had a warehouse in the back of their church, kind of like our bus barn, just 3 or 4 times that. And everything came unorganized, and they just had 50 or 60 people sorting through each box, reboxing, and then they would palletize it and deliver it to the other churches that were handing stuff out. So a lot of our stuff went there, and then we have pictures. We'll go through that. But then Pastor Sluter, we got a couple of those are there from there of specific needs. So that I know some people were texting as we got there, like, did they get this? Did they get this? And it was kind of hard to explain because they they only had about 4 or 5 people handing stuff out at Bible Baptist plus, and then we showed up, but we had a lot of construction and stuff to do around the church and on the grounds. We couldn't really hand out as much, but they were kind of already over there. That's why they're not taking donations. They have too much right now. So Anchor Baptist, I think, is still taking stuff to kind of sort, but.
So what we were able to do, a lot of soap products, a lot of hygiene products, and hand sanitizers, things like that, is what Bible Baptist did need. They had diapers. They had a lot of paper towels and toilet papers. They took some, but they obviously didn't take 2 pallets worth.
They did take the big pallet on the back of Cohen.
Yeah,
They took that whole thing.
They did take 1 pallet. Okay. So we were able to, what they worked out with Anchor Baptist, like CJ was just saying, they had a huge distribution center. And so we're gonna go through that right now. But this is the front of the church. They probably had like 30 pop-up tents, and they probably had like 50 people out there just sorting through stuff, getting it all situated and getting it all itemized or whatever so they could distribute it properly.
The warehouse on the right and the church is on the left. The warehouse is down.
Yeah, this is the warehouse, and then this is the church, but it was a huge facility, so they own both those properties there. And we're going to drive around to the back to help them. So what I was explaining before, how we had that snowball effect. Not only did we bless one church, but then we went to this distribution, which is blessing not only churches, but other communities. I mean, it's just exponential what we were able to go and participate with or be a part of. And so this is us pulling around into the back. They had tractor trailers. They had huge box trucks, just almost like rotating constantly. And we're going to go through some videos here of it. But here's some back pictures of it. Other cars and vehicles coming with enclosed trailers and vans and just people dropping stuff off nonstop. So they probably had at least another 30 people in the back, just unloading trucks, running forklifts, running those lulls or telehandlers. And I think somewhere we have a video here.
We ran into a couple people that knew State Line Baptist as well. Mark Keel. Mark Keel was down there. Some of you guys probably remember him. He was with somebody else who I didn't get the name of, but apparently he presented his ministry here about 3 years ago or so. They all knew Pastor Jimmy. And so, yeah, we ran into a lot of people that we didn't know, like, face-to-face, but they were asking where we got all this stuff. It was like State Line Baptist set us down with a whole bunch of stuff, and then everyone knew who State Line Baptist was.
So as we're unloading, the guys were almost overwhelmed. We had so much stuff, and they're like, okay. I mean, they were grateful, but they're just like, wow. And then we're like, what do you have? And we're like, well, we got everything, and it's all in separate boxes, and it's all labeled. And they said, thank you so much. That was such a blessing. They were so, like, refreshed. And maybe I'll go through that again one more time. But you can see the process. But they were able to, so the water and the cases and pallets of food, that was easy to deal with. It was our dump trailer that had all the different random boxes, but they were all separated. So what we did is got multiple boxes down, or pallets, and then put boxes on different pallets. But again, you just see tractor trailers coming in and out, and box trucks are coming in and out and getting offloaded. And this was the whole time they were open. I think from maybe 8 or 9 in the morning till 6 at night. It was like this. So it was a big operation that they had. So that was the end of our day. And then on Thursday afternoon, so we have some food.
Yeah, Thursday. We haven't slept yet.
Yeah.
From Wednesday morning.
So this is some of the food that some of the women made and prepared. And that was a great blessing. The preacher's family really enjoyed it, and the volunteers that came downstairs in the kitchen, they got to enjoy some of the baked goods that some of the women made of our church. And then this was the evening. Again, the volunteers are starting to wind down, and part of my passion was to go and prepare food for them. So I wanted to cook meals. I wanted to cook the dinner Thursday night. I wanted to cook breakfast Friday morning, and then dinner Friday night for them.
So that's actually part of what we did too. All the waters and all the boxes, that was just kind of in a giant pile on the ground. So this is still Thursday. Part of what we did when we was there is we just worked at the church. So we stacked all the waters up on pallets, all the food, organized all the food from the canned goods to the baby food, and put it at least on pallets. And then one church donated a pallet jack. That way they could, because they had nothing. It was all by hand. We just moved everything by hand. And then Pastor Matt had a skid steer, at least.
With forks.
Yeah, with forks. That way we could do some work. But now they have a pallet jack so they can move and reorganize. But that was kind of what we spent a lot of our day doing. Was I know the week prior, Pastor Matt went down and there was a bunch of guys there, and they just wanted to drive around town and see if people needed help. And they spent like 10 hours out, but there's no one out and about because everyone's either out of North Carolina, family or friends, or they're just looking for places. They're just missing everybody. So he said they spent 10 hours kind of away from the church, but didn't see anybody, so they kind of wasted 10 hours. Right. So when we went down, he said, "Look, you guys can come, but it's going to be a lot of work at the church to do." And we were fine with it, but yeah, there was a lot of work, at least a lot of water to move around, because they went through, I think they said about 4 pallets a day on usually the slower days of those pallets of water. So
what they would do is just keep rotating it, like by hand, just like filling stuff back up again real quick. Because once the pallets were already there, you weren't getting like a skid steer in the middle or something. So you just had to keep rotating it and moving it up forward. Oh, okay. I didn't realize this was a video too. So again, just the volunteers reorganizing things. The day's winding down. The volunteers were pretty much on their feet all the time. And then this was me. We did barbecue chicken on the fire, so I had the fire pit going. And so we took that fire pit down. That was my fire pit, and we donated it to them because we didn't know what their status is with cooking. Somebody, if you see in the back, somebody did donate a brand new Blackstone to them. So that was pretty awesome. The problem is the igniter was busted. And so we were able to repair that for them so they could use that. Because if not, you actually had to lift the whole top off to light the burner, so it really wasn't user-friendly. So we brought that to cook on, and it was involved. It was like, all right, we don't have running water. I'm trying to be as sanitary as I can. And the kitchen was in the basement of the church. You see the church there in the background. And it's just like, all right, what steps do I have to do to prepare this meal, to take it up? When I grab this chicken and when I get the sauce in there, my hands are going to be a mess. I got to get a bottle of water or something. What am I going to touch on the way out there to take it outside and to cook? And so you're just running through all these steps and trying to do everything the right way. But we were able to cook that for them. Here's on the fire, the chicken, and then there's a couple split pictures of it. They were getting hungry. They were ready to attack me if I didn't start feeding them. They're like, "That chicken's done." And I'm checking it with the meat thermometer. I'm like, "Oh, it's getting close." They're like, "It looks done to me." So I'm like, "It's coming." But we set some sides up. We had some different side dishes. We made some potatoes on the Blackstone, some fried potatoes, and we had fresh fruits and vegetables for them because, again, they might have been eating stuff from cans. They're not getting a lot of fresh groceries. So we wanted to take down all kinds of fresh stuff that's ripe and ready to eat so they could enjoy that. And so, anyway, that was the evening. They got to hang out. This was their other fire pit that they had, and they were using it so much the bottom of it actually burned out. That's why we donated the one we had so they could cook on it or just use it as a fire pit. And so they got to enjoy the evening not having to cook. And so that was part of the pastor's family, the preacher's family, and some of the volunteers and their family that were out there. We cooked 45 pieces of chicken, and I was like, even if we have too much, whatever. I think there was only like 10 people. It was gone. So I was like, oh, good. That's what it was for. So anyway, Cohen and CJ went to bed a little bit before me. I stayed up till about 12:30 Friday morning. Yeah.
You're crazy.
And so
we went to bed.
Yeah, about like 40 hours.
So
40.
yeah.
1 hour a day.
So I got up at like 5 Friday morning and did some praying, and then somebody comes. I went in the sanctuary. That was kind of nice. I never really slept in a church before, so that was convenient. Just go in the sanctuary and pray at 5 in the morning. So these guys, Trinity Baptist Church, shows up at 6:30 Friday morning. And so they come knocking in on the door. I'm the only one up. Everybody else has passed out. The preacher was staying at the church there. He was sleeping in a room, didn't even have a door on it. Brother Fabe was in one room. Cohen and CJ were in another room. And I'm down in the kitchen. I think I was eating some fruit or something and just getting to plan out the day. And these guys come down to the kitchen area, and they're like, "Is anybody up?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm up." And they're like, "Well, we're here with a delivery. We got a couple trucks and trailers out there that need offloaded." I'm like, "Okay, let me go get the preacher." So I knock on the door, or knock on the wall because there was no door. I'm like, "Preacher," and he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "There's a delivery," and he's like, well, bless God. I'm going to need about 10 minutes before I get up. I'm like, all right, brother. So we go out there. So he was done. I mean, he was exhausted. His family was staying at his wife's parents' house. So his wife and his children were all there because his house was flooded. They didn't have electricity, and then they finally got it, but there was mildew, and they got to rip up some carpet. So they didn't have any running water, so they weren't staying at their house. They were either staying at the church or, like I said, his wife and his children were staying at his wife's parents' house.
It's also the picture of the well.
So yeah, you do have the well there off to the right side of the driveway. So I think.
But this day too was his 11th day sleeping at the church. He hadn't been home, so he was pretty beat.
So here's just a quick video. Like I said, Brother LaFay's running the skid steer, which was a huge help with the forks on there so we could offload. I mean, we would have been there for hours. He could do it in a half an hour. Now the enclosed trailer, we had CJ and Cohen help with unloading by hand. But the forklift or the skid steer was a huge thing. This would have to be tarped every night so the dew didn't ruin all the cardboard boxes or paper goods or the food and product packaging. So every night this was getting tarped and then pulled off and folded up and ready to do business, basically. Yeah. He wished it could dry that fast. Yeah, we wish we could walk that fast. It was nonstop. So as you can see, the sun's just coming up. So it was an early start. It was a cold start.
It was freezing.
Do you want to mention your
sleeping
event?
We set up our room, and it was hot and muggy in the room and humid because it's a small room and we were setting up. So we just opened the window, and it's North Carolina. So I was like, well, it's going to be warmer down there than it is up here. Yeah, apparently going south means it's colder. But I woke up, I put mine, I was right under the window, and my head was freezing, and I wasn't reaching out of my blanket, so I just fully tucked up underneath. And then when I woke up finally, right before this happened, Cohen was in his full coat and pants and covered up to his head in his blanket. But it was cold every morning. It was below 40.
It was chilly.
Yeah, it was really cold down there.
Well, what about your head?
We ain't gonna talk about that.
So CJ had frost.
I said we ain't gonna talk about that.
Like gel because he didn't close the window at night.
It was cold.
So,
Frost on.
oh, I can't believe this
you
is
got
on
that
video. I can't believe I got this on video. But anyway,
Oh.
so we have a little bit of disorganization back here in this area. And so Brother LaFave, you know how he has his OCD, so bless his heart. So it's not good enough to just organize for him. He wants to clean all the rubble off the driveway on top of it.
He don't like rocks in the parking lot.
Yeah, so
In a gravel parking lot, he didn't really like the rocks there.
so he gives me a blower for whatever reason that has 10 different steps of push this and squeeze this and pull this and then choke that, and then it literally had 10 steps on there. Why you would even buy a machine that needs 10 steps to operate it? So I couldn't. He finally gets it, and what he kindly did was relocate all the debris and rubble and ash in that parking lot over to the neighbors, and just covered everything with ash. But we didn't worry about that. Here's some pictures of these were the trucks and trailers from Trinity that we offloaded. So what we had to do was Trinity had some things that the church didn't need. So what we ended up doing is loading our trailer back up to take it back to Anchor Baptist. Now, at that time, no sooner did we do that, Anchor Baptist showed up with pallets of food that was already put together in a giveaway box. And it was either hygiene products or it was food products.
Family care or family food was.
And-
About like 12 pallets, I think.
Yeah, they had 12?
I think 10 or 12 pallets.
And so what Anchor Baptist, that's what they were doing. And so what we were able to do, because it was about a 2-hour round trip for us to take it there, Anchor Baptist, and come back, we were able to offload my trailer right into their box truck, and they took it back for us. So it was perfect that they got to save us a trip. So after all that, it was then time to make breakfast. So then we go into
It
the
was 9 o'clock, remember, because the pastor's wife had to show up at 9 o'clock.
Yeah. I really was on the hook because the pastor's wife, I was like, are you coming to breakfast? And she's like, what time? And I was like, 9 o'clock. And she's like, all right. And the preacher down there is like, if my wife comes here at 9 o'clock, I'll be looking up for resurrection or for, my redemption draweth nigh. But she was there, 9 o'clock, so we held up our end of the bargain. So we cooked eggs and bacon and potatoes and sausage for them and fed them, and probably about 10, 12 of us maybe when we did that. And then here are some photos. This was the Anchor Baptist.
You were cooking. Whenever the box truck showed up, he started cooking. So then me, CJ, and Matt, we all kind of started working on unloading the box truck and then reloading the box truck back up.
Right. And so as you can see, those boxes are all set up for like a family for either a 1 or 2 day box that they can say, all right, here's your hygiene products. And then they had food ones as well that had the same thing, that had a couple days supplies for them too. And then we tried to get as much pictures as we could of guys working. Anything you want to say?
I can't tell.
You can't tell? That's you.
Yeah. I'm carrying water.
Yeah, you're carrying water.
Putting water in people's cars. Everybody would get, if they wanted a box of food and 2 cases of water. So you would just have to ask them. Sometimes it was a little bit hard in Spanish. You had to ask agua. I mean, you definitely learned some Spanish down there too.
Enough to get by.
Yeah, enough to ask them some questions.
So, and the water obviously was heavy, so Cohen put to work, or CJ put to work with that. And then sometimes you'd have broken bottles, and so again, we'd have to sort everything and organize it. Or
That's how we found when we found the water. How it's under the tarp, is kind of sitting on the pavement. So and then the pallets on the right. So it was the whole parking lot kind of just like
all the water on the ground.
yeah, all the stuff was just on the ground. So then they'd relocate it to the pallets to organize or to move it around. Here's a little assembly line of what our Friday looked like. And I think they'd estimate between 150, 200 cars.
I think like 150 was pretty average, but the most that they did was like upwards of 300 a day.
And a lot of cars were at least 2 people, or sometimes a whole family, 4 or 5 people. This was a couple, this husband and wife here on the right-hand side. They were taking stuff into trailer parks where people couldn't get out of, or the men still had to go to work and it was just moms at home with the young children and couldn't get out to get supplies. And then by the time the men would get done work, they would these places would be closed down and be after hours.
He was actually the principal of I'm pretty sure the high school there. But
She-
he was the principal of some school.
She even has 2 bags of teddy bears too. We gave her, but they would load up all kinds of supplies and then go out and distribute it to the communities. Again, just another compounding effect of our ministry to go and be a blessing. The outreach is just unreal. How many people were coming to this church to then go out and feed other communities? Another picture of Cohen loading up. These are some of the volunteers there. So this man's name was Dan. This was Randy. Was Randy?
Assistant pastor.
He's assistant pastor. Brother Gunther, is that his name? Gunther or something? Yeah. Gunther? He's 15 minutes north of Brother Lefebvre's church. So he was from Michigan too, coming down. And then this is Brother Sluter there in the picture. And some more volunteers, Randy and his wife, me, where some of the pictures of devastation that we got from her photos that she took or had on her Facebook. We already had that picture. There we go. Let me see. So this was how they were getting water. I guess when I put these slides in, it kind of zoomed up. So what they had is they had one of those big IBC tanks on the back of Brother Sluter's pickup truck. And what they would have to do is go down to the river that just devastated the whole community, but go down, pump water, river water into the tank, and then come bring it back up to the church, about a 5-minute drive, fill buckets of water, and that's how you could flush your toilets. That was pretty much the only way you had, facilities in the church. You didn't want to drink it, obviously. You didn't want to wash anything in it, but you could use it for, the septic system, basically. And so that was the only way they were having any type of water running in the church, so to speak. And so Brother LaFay's idea was, hey, let's take pallets, let's stack them up, and let's put some of these IBC tanks, those 250-gallon tanks, on top of those pallets, and then they can just fill up these buckets, and he doesn't have to keep running, and we'll use the well to fill it. So that's what I was doing Friday morning. Before Trinity came, I was designing how that was going to work out. And so we got started on building a platform in which we're also going to incorporate a stationary tub with running water for the church to go ahead and have tanks to fill up. Now this was a gentleman from across the street. He brought a wagon over so he could fill up water, because again, none of these houses have running water. Not everybody can afford to have a well drilled. So this is actually a water source for the whole community. Did you want to talk about what you're doing?
Me and Pastor Matt, we were just washing out. The bins were used, they had organic soy oil.
Soy oil. It's kind of like syrup.
Yeah, in the tanks, that's what they were used for before, and it's like blue, basically, inside. So we spent, the entire time that they spent building this, that we spent trying to wash out these tanks so that way, because it would like look like yellow kind of gooey stuff coming out. I mean, they were just using it to flush our toilets, but still, it looked pretty gross. So we were just trying to wash them out pretty much the whole time while they were doing that, work and building it.
Let me see if it'll load.
Before you play,
What's that?
I was just gonna say, before they even started building it, Dad and CJ, they left to go to Lowe's to get supplies, and as soon as they left, not even 5 minutes after, we had a school bus, a van, and 3 more trucks and trailers come in at the exact same time. So we had all that to unload with 2 less people. So me and, we didn't really get any pictures of that, but me and Pastor Matt, we were helping out with that a lot, trying to just organize people and unload. And of course, right before they showed up, all the trucks and trailers and vans, Pastor Schluter, he left to the hospital because he had poison oak on his arm really bad, and it got infected too. But also one thing that you wouldn't think of too is that the sun down there, it was ridiculously strong, intense. So everybody was getting sunburned. Like Pastor Schluter himself, he was red all over, and you wouldn't think to send sunscreen down there, but it was a need. Regardless, but he was sunburned bad and he had poison really bad, so he left for the hospital, so he was gone. It was only like pretty much me and Matt that were running all these guys that just showed up at the exact same time. That happened while they were left for the supply. So then we get everybody out, we push them out, like, all right, go, and then they get back and then started building that.
So this took a long time. It might not look like much, but it took me and CJ hours to figure out how to go from a hose to a sink faucet. Because
they don't make that adapter if you're wondering. You can't go from a hose to it. You got to make one.
Very limited supplies. And then it took more hours for Cohen and CJ to make these little angled pieces, because if you were to open up that nozzle, the water would just shoot straight out because it was under so much pressure. So you're not filling a bucket up sideways. And so they were able to make this work by going to multiple stores, and like I said, at least probably 3 hours. Yeah. You guys working on that.
The problem is too is that a lot of the hardware stores down there, they don't have any. A lot of their stuff a lot of their supplies are like draining because it was hard for them to get deliveries for a little bit too. But also a lot of people have these tanks now. You see a lot of these tanks down there, and they're all 2-inch containers. So all of the 2-inch pieces were used for the most part.
Yeah. So this was huge to the community. I mean, neighbors were coming across the street. They were giving away buckets with lids so they could fill them up and give them to people and put them in their cars, so they could have running well, or they could have water that was from a well, and it would be at least a lot better than any other way of getting water. And also what these tanks provided, I didn't get to incorporate that into our slideshow, is other people would have these tanks on trailers. And so early Saturday morning, a truck showed up with 2 of those tanks on their trailers, empty, and they were able to put their pump right into our tank and fill it within a couple minutes. And so they were able to have fresh well water that they were taking around to other communities, doing this like a mobile service because of other communities that couldn't get out. So again, it was awesome. Just the epicenter of this place and what it was able to do for Asheville or for the community around. Here were some of the construction pictures. And this, so it wasn't a hard project to do this. The problem is you'd get a load of people that show up, and all of a sudden you'd have to stop whatever you're doing, and you'd have to go run and render aid. You'd have to give them supplies. You'd have to help out the volunteers. And then it's just like, all right, now what were we even working on when it cleared up? And then where is all our tools that we just set down or threw down or whatever? And it would take you almost like 45 minutes to just get started again. And it would just be one interruption after another. So this is Friday evening, wrapping up. You can see the sun getting ready to set. And so there's a picture of that. Fire's going. Well, we were told that another delivery was coming around 5:30, 6:30 at night.
They're supposed to do that 6:30.
And they were supposed to bring steaks. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm not going to make hamburgers and hot dogs. I was going to mix all that up for them and make them food. So we were still working on our water plan or whatever you want to call it. And I'm looking at the time. I'm looking at the sky. They got a fire going. And I'm like, this isn't good. Like, it's getting late.
The MREs.
They started eating some of the emergency food, like out of little pouches. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, so much for the steaks. So we just finished working on that water plant, and then it's time to now make dinner. So I hurry up and I go down. I mix up like, I think 5 or 6 pounds of burger at one time, which isn't easy. Again, all the steps. All right, I got fatty burger meat all over my hands. I got to try to get upstairs, not touch anything. And so I get these on the fire, I get the fire going, I get them cooking, and then 6 trucks with 6 trailers show up at 8:30?
9:30. We weren't even there. We were at the store getting the stuff.
I think they show up at about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. The reason I pointed out the water situation with us is, if you'll notice, there's some walls on the side of this trailer. This woman, so these, what was the church that came down? They came from, I think it was Indiana.
One was from Indiana. The one was from Georgia.
But what happened was this truck had pallets of water, 20 pallets of water on there, so like 40,000 pounds of water. They started losing their load halfway down. And so they had to pull off, unload all that water, and then build sides for that. We didn't even realize it until after they already pulled up and we started unloading them with the skid steer. Thank our Heavenly Father that we had that forklift skid steer, because again, at 9:30 at night, like, who's going to want to deal with this? There were stones on her trailer. It was a woman that drove that truck down, and there were stones on their trailer, and I'm like, where did the stones come from? And she's like, we had to unload all this water in the middle of a gravel parking lot and then reload it back up, and so some of the stones got stuck on the pallets. And they had to build those sides. Anyway, it was supposed to be a 6-hour drive for them. It was a 12-hour drive down. And then they had to turn around and go right back. The woman that actually drove this truck had to be back at work at 7 a.m. So, like I expressed last Sunday, Satan was definitely trying to fight people rendering aid and people coming to the rescue. These people were probably traumatized. And so we helped them offload, and I think I even have a quick video here of it. But, and so I'm cooking dinner, right? I'm cooking these burgers on the grill, and I'm trying to check on, watch them. And Brother LaFave comes over, and he's like, you need to help me. And I'm like, I just put the food on the grill. Like, Cohen and CJ weren't there. And he just like drives away in a huff. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like, these people are eating MREs or whatever. And so he gives me about 15 more minutes. He comes back. He's like, you need to stop what you're doing now and help me. What happened is that water was so heavy, when he would take it off, it would actually tilt forward, and sometimes the whole skid steer would go forward, and the pallet would like slam on the ground. So I almost lost it a couple times. And so I had to guide him and lower him back down. So I just said, all right, the burgers are good, guys. And then I ran over to help him. So this took a few hours to unload all 6 trucks and trailers. So as when Cohen and CJ got back, they helped with unloading, and we had some enclosed trailers. It was nice when we could use the forks on the skid steer. And some people it was nice to see those flashes, were taking pictures of it. And I don't know what, I guess that's flashlights in the sky. I was like, is there comets or something? But anyway, that was a huge help. And then after we get done unloading it, it's like almost 11 o'clock. And it's like, all right, guys, time to make dinner. So I went back downstairs. I mixed up another 5 pounds of burger meat, and brought it back up, started a whole new fire again, and then cooked dinner for us, Brother Faith, me, Cohen, and CJ, and then the security guys. So they had guys there all night watching the parking lot, watching the goods, making sure nothing was going to happen to that stuff. And so they got fed. And I think I ended up hanging out with those guys for a little bit. And I think I went to bed at 3:30 in the morning, Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And then it was back up at 6 a.m. Saturday morning, or maybe 7 a.m. I don't know, I slept in.
We slept in a little bit on Saturday.
So we left Saturday morning, and then we already showed you some of the footage of when we left and the devastation. That's the only time we had a chance to even go and see anything. But this was Sunday morning. This was last Sunday. They had church. They had a cookout for the people that came out to church. And then here's some of the people getting water. And so they also were able to tie the running water, like CJ said, into their church building. So they at least could flush toilets and didn't have to take a bucket anymore. So it was a huge blessing. And that's why I said on last Sunday, in Ephesians 2:10, it said, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in them." And so he already had plans for good works to happen. And he just needed some of his children to take action. And that's what this church did. It was unbelievable. And that's why I shared, the good servant that had the talents, the 5 talents, the good steward. And that's really, there is so many things that blessings upon blessings and just good works upon good works that we were able to do that we had no idea this was going to even happen. We just were going down there with some food and just to help out. And the community that we helped, we didn't just help a church, we helped the community, but then we helped the whole region, I would say, by all the different relationships and places that we went. And so I think that the good works that we did are going to be multiplied. And I think we're going to have talents to say to our Heavenly Father, like, look, you gave us 5 talents, and look, we're giving you 10 talents back. And the church was just so blessed. They just, it was hard to put into words, but they were just amazed. They said, if we only did anything, was just the water supply, they said that was more than enough. So to do so much above and beyond for them was awesome. And again, it was because of State Line, it was because of our Holy Spirit working in us that did this. So that's how we wrapped it up.